Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and we've got a great conversation around data ahead of us today. I'm joined by Denny Lengkong, president of IntelliData. Denny's passion lies in simplifying data complexities for associations and nonprofits. With a strong background in data analytics, he leads a team of dedicated professionals in delivering transformative solutions. Denny, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Colleen.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to dive in here. And first, I'd just love for you to tell our audience a little bit about IntelliData and your role and really what kinds of associations you work with so folks can get an idea of who they're listening to and what you all do.
Oh, thanks, Colleen. So we are IntelliData. We are data. We call ourselves data solution company. So we deal with anything with data migration, data cleanup, data enrichment, things like that. And then we work with association from a variety of sizes. The smallest associations that we work with have about 5 staff, and the biggest one has about 150 staff.
That's great. I know last time we talked, you were getting ready to head off to the Texas A version of ASAE, their chapter there, and you were talking about dashboarding 101. I think when we start to talk about data, there's a big literacy gap among association leaders still. And I'm wondering why, because I feel like we've been talking about data for a long time now, but that's still the case. So why is that happening, and how do you break through that hesitation to get started?
So the reason why we went there, and we also had a presentation. It's called Dashboarding 101, which is great. And the reason why we're doing that is to educate, to educate and to introduce associations to dashboarding, to data, make sure they're not intimidated with data. A lot of the associations have data. They know they have data, but a lot of them don't know how to start, or a lot of them are a little hesitant, a little intimidated to get, not really sure what to start, right? So when we're doing Dashboard 101, we introduce the association folks on how to start the data. Start with Excel spreadsheet, if you will, right? Because it has to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere, right? It's just I think I usually put it as in analogies in cooking, right? You start with when you're in college, when you're a college student, you start with the cup of noodles. You don't have time, you don't know where to start, right? And then you just get a cup of noodles. As you get older, as learn more, you start making grilled cheese sandwich, right? And next thing you know, you're getting a custom pizza oven, and then you're gonna get a gluten-free pizza, right? So that's what it is. So you can, the same thing with dashboarding, same thing with data. You can start with very, very simple Excel spreadsheet, and then you create a pie chart out of that, and then you can move along and then try to pull different data from different data set, and then you might be able to combine a couple of different data sets. And as you get more advanced, you can do a lot more. And as back to the analogy, next thing you know, you're making your own gluten-free pizza, right? So
yeah, I love the idea of starting simple, because when we think we have to create these amazing dashboards and all this stuff, it can be overwhelming, and it can keep us from even getting started. So that idea of just start with whatever you can and whatever you know, I really like. And I'd love to go back a little bit to kind of your personal mission when it comes to data strategy and how you feel about that.
So we, as IntelliData, like I mentioned before, we're trying to simplify the data solution. Right, a lot of times, and we've seen this a lot. Well, I've been in the association space for over 20 years, and all in the data, mostly on the data side. And a lot of the challenges that we see is when association folks are trying to get reports, trying to get something out of their data, they either have to go to IT or have to go through a lot of hoops to get through that, right? Because maybe because they don't have access, and maybe because they don't know how to do it, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help those folks to simplify data so they can get the answer or get the data that they need in less than 3 clicks, right? And because as we said, you have the data, you already have that. Take advantage of that. You're what kind of insight do you have? And the data is sitting there. It's a gold mine that just needs to be accessed and pulled correctly, right? So we're trying to. Our goal and our mission is trying to educate association folks to enable themselves to pull the data and get the things that they need, so they can. The goal and the long-term goal is to be a data-driven organization, right? So that's the top goal. But it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a big sticking point is, okay, we have all this data, but what do we do with it? But going back to getting started. So I do think one of the biggest hurdles for teams is knowing what to even visualize and why. So when you're thinking about that dashboarding 101, what are 5 questions that you recommend associations ask themselves before they're even going to start building a dashboard?
The weird thing with visualization is it's usually it works a little backward, right? We call it reverse engineer. So instead of saying, "Oh, how am I going to start?" Usually, what we tell association folks is figure out what's your goal. What are you trying to achieve? What are your pain points, right? I'm trying, for example, our member count or member engagement, it's trending toward, it's sliding down basically, or our member count it's going down. Why is that? How do we address that? And things like that. Or I want to know what's the breakdown of my annual meeting attendance, right? Things like that. So come up with a goal, come up with the question that you want to answer, because what that does is it's going to let you focus on a specific data set instead of going, a lot of these big systems have a very, very complicated database structure, and, not, so when you start focusing on certain area, you're looking at few tables instead of a few hundred tables, right? Things like that. That's my first question. And 2 is, who is your audience? Who are your is your audience just your peers, or is it your boss, or is it your members, right? So because knowing your audience, it's how you plan to visualize your dashboard. For if it's a simple peer reports, you can just create reports in a bar chart, pie chart, easy enough to read, right? Easy enough to consume. But if you want to have it for the board, then you might want to make it a little more interesting. Do kind of like a what if analysis, or a predictive chart, things like that, right? And a couple of the things too that we need to ask is, do you have the data, or do you know how to get the data? If not, and that's the most important thing, I think you have the data. Whether you have it complete, that's the other question. Complete set of data, that's the other question, right? Because you might want to, for example, you want to break down your meeting attendance, and you want to break it down by age, gender, and education level. You might have the age and gender, you might not have the education level. Now, by doing that, by start doing the report, you realize, oh, I don't have the education level. Maybe you should collect that data. How do I collect it, right? So then that leads to another conversation with your AMS or with your team, just to figure out what to do with that. And once you get the data, do you need to massage it? Do you need to compile it? Do you need to dedupe it? Do you need to clean it and things like that? So those are the kind of questions that usually we ask questions. But I think the top 3 questions is, what are your pain points? What are you looking for? What are you trying to achieve? Who's your audience? And whether you have the complete set of data. Those 3, I think instead of 5, if we can shrink it to 3, those are the 3 questions that I would ask.
I like that. I want to call out for audience a couple of those there. The who is your audience? That is so important for anything we're doing, right? And that can really guide how you're going to build this, what data you're going to pull. But then, do I have the data? I love that because it gets you thinking ahead. So you can be thinking, say for a conference, before a conference, what are the things we're going to want to ask after, and what are the data we're going to need, and make sure you put the measures in place to gather that. So I think those are really helpful to frame this conversation and to just help us get in that mindset of what we need to be thinking about to use the data to the best that we can. And you mentioned earlier the goal of being data driven. And I feel like we talk a lot about that a lot in the association world, but it does feel a little bit like a buzzword. So I'd love to know, in your view, what does it really mean for an association to operate with a data mindset, and what's the role of visualization in that too?
So to be a data-driven organization, it is very challenging, and we don't see a lot of, we see a few associations that are really, really data-driven, and that's, although although it is really hard to achieve, it is not a unicorn. You can achieve it. It's going to take, it might take some time, and like I said, you got to start somewhere, right? If you don't start, you're never going to get there. So with the data-driven is making every or majority of the decision based on data. For example, we work with clients that analyze, a client that's in a fundraising area, and they analyze their data on every single day, just trying to figure out what email campaign works, what's the open rate. If we change the keyword on the email campaign, does it change the open rate, and things like that, right? Or figuring out, based on this giving pattern, who are the people that we need to target, things like that. Or if our goal, or for example, another example is, we are looking at, we create a visualization for another client of ours, and it is looking at a trend of the giving, right? The when people donate, and based on a certain point, if they didn't hit a certain point, the end of the goal, the goal at the end of the year might not be achieved, and so they have to make an adjustment toward, like in mid year, or so the having that available, it's so helpful, because you can make an adjustment right away, instead of when 2 months, like a month before, you realize that, we're not going to hit our goal. What do we need to do, and scramble, right? So analyzing the data on a regular basis, and make adjustment. And I'll get back to analogy, and I love making analogy. This is kind of like a football game, right? Or a baseball game. You're down by a touchdown at a half point, or you're down by a couple touchdowns. But what do I need to do to catch up, or at least to get to get even, or get score more points so you can beat your opponent, right? So instead of waiting till the fourth quarter, you can probably make an adjustment at halftime, things like that.
So. Yeah, you can't fix what you don't know. So if you don't know something's a problem, you can't do anything about it. But tracking this data, monitoring it, that puts you in such a good position to be able to make those adjustments you need to make.
Right, and what we say is, you can't track what you can't measure.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. That's perfect. So I'm curious, because you just started off by saying there are a couple associations that are really good at being data driven. And what are some characteristics of those groups that are good at this and are doing it right?
The good characteristic is they understand, and they understand the pain points, and they are willing to go through it, and they are willing to sacrifice a lot of, and the biggest issue, or the biggest challenges that we see, or challenge, actually, just singular. One of the biggest challenges is the data silo. The membership, if each department thinks, this is my data, I'm not sharing it with anybody, and so when you ask a membership how many members you have, they'll say we have 5,000. And when you ask the meetings or events department, they'll say we have 5,500, right? Yep. Because they have two different data sets, and that's to be a data driven, you have to be willing to share your data. And you have to create a single source of truth. That's the main goal, because everybody's looking at the same source. So when I asked 5 different people, they're looking at the same data source, they're going to give you the same answer, right? So that's the goal. That's one of the biggest characteristic, willing to share. 2 is, there's got to be a champion. It's got to be someone that's going to spearhead the effort. And I like when someone has those associations that are successful. Usually they have a separate department, not really separate, but a dedicated data group or data team, and they are the one who's coming up with, what do we need to do? What do we need to measure? What do we need to, are we missing something? And they are the one who's approving a lot of the requests, if you will, by people. We want to, for example, some questions are not, maybe it's not worth spending the time, right, for the team. So they want to make sure that all, the request is can be used by the whole company, so they can spend the money wisely. And so having that team, actually, it's good because they will educate, they will spearhead the effort, they will spread the word, saying you need to look at the report, you need to look at what's going on. As my favorite say is, the more you know, the more you don't know, right? Because
Yes.
it's the more you learn, the more you want to learn about something else, right? And which is a good thing. So
That's such a great saying. I love that. It's so accurate. That's awesome. When we talked a couple months ago to get ready for this, you had mentioned that the two most common questions you get are how hard is this and how much does it cost? So I'd love to know your honest take on how associations can balance cost, time, and effort when building out their analytics capabilities, because that is a real concern for a lot of associations.
right. So back to how hard is it, and how much does it cost? Is back to my cooking analogy, right? Back, it's you got to start somewhere. If you just want to do it from Excel, that's equivalent to you're cooking your cup of noodles. Pour hot water, you're done, right? You get your data set, you switching it to a pie chart or bar chart, and you're done. And depends on how hard it's you make the call. You have to start somewhere, and you have to dedicate yourself to build it, right? Again, back to my cooking analogy, you can learn how to make pizza on your own. Once you get to that point, also same thing is you have a limitation, whether either you don't have the time, or you don't have the bandwidth, or you don't. But majority of the time it's just you just don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the time, right? The same thing with cooking. At some point, as good as you are at cooking, you want to eat out. You want to let the professionals do it, right? You want to have a nice steak, somewhere. Same thing. When clients hire us, it's not because they don't know how to do it. It's just they don't have the bandwidth, and we do this all the time. So it's a lot more. We're doing it a lot more efficient, a lot, and we've seen all the gotchas, right? Again, same thing with like back to my cooking analogy. When you're eating out, you leaving it up to the professional. So you can, but you don't have to do that. If it's cost prohibitive for you to hire a consultant, you can do it yourself. You can learn, and you can. So how much does it cost? It depends on like what your budget is, but it's. If you have to do it yourself, the only cost is your time. It's not that it's not that difficult. And we've helped clients. We've trained clients. Once we built something for clients, we've helped clients learn how to do it, so they can. So we don't give them fish, as they say, right? We teach them how to fish. So that's that. Hopefully that's a good answer.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think the answer is it depends. And it depends how much you want to go in, and that you can start at different points. So I think that's really good to know. And it comes back to that, just start small if you have to, and see what you get from it. And I think you'll see the ROI and might want to grow from there, or maybe you'll find your sweet spot. So I think that's really, really helpful.
Right. And you want to, and what I forgot to add is also once you start with something, share it with your colleague, share it with your boss, because the more you share it, the more people will appreciate it, and the more they know, they'll be like, oh, so you could do that. Maybe can you pull something out? Can you pull something else for me? And you'll become the data person, right? Or you become an analytics person, and get a small win, get a low hang, figure out a low hanging fruit, go from there. And you build from there, build momentum. That's usually what it is. And the more people appreciate it, the more you want to do it. And that's how the more you want to do it, the more information you want to share, the more. And it's a never ending cycle, but it's a good never ending cycle kind of thing, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely. That's great. So you also mentioned that you're going to be launching a fun new video series. I don't know if it's launched yet or not, but it's called Talk Data to Me. I'd love to know the idea behind it and how you're trying to reach this new generation of association professionals through humor and real talk.
Absolutely. So I wouldn't take credit for it. So, our marketing director of operations came out with this idea. And the reason why we want to do this is we are trying to, put a light in, a sample, trying to share with association folks that the data challenges is not just you. Everybody has the same challenge, right? The reason why we make it short, we make it funny, because we ask one of the simple questions is, if you have to rate your data or like you have to equivalent put your data in an emoji, what emoji is that? Is it a smiley face, or is that a frowny face, or things like that, right? So, and we see, we've interviewed a few people and we see some, a good range, but it also tells people like, look, I'm not alone. I am, I'm not the only one who's having data challenges, right? And, people are trying to get rid of, people are trying to get into a certain point. And I'm glad that, there are, it's a human nature, right? If you see somebody that has the same challenges, you feel a little better, like, oh, I can, if they're having the same challenge, I can probably do this too, right? It's not impossible. So
Definitely.
That's what we're trying to do. And also we're trying to put, like I said, put something like out there so people can enjoy and they can get encouraged by watching that data, by watching that series.
I love that. I look forward to it. It'll be great. So AMS Fest is coming up next week, and I know you'll be there. What are you hearing from association leaders heading into the event? What do you expect are going to be the hottest topics there?
So when people go to AMS Fest, majority of them are either looking at new AMS or just reviewing all the AMSs out there. There's new AMS that comes up every other month. It seems like, right? It seems like it. And when we're helping clients doing the data migration, when they move from one AMS to another, we usually tell them to give about 12 to 18 months for the process from looking at previewing the AMS, doing an RFP and all that stuff, right? So some clients are ready to do that. I've seen clients that come to multiple AMSs just because at the first AMS they were just browsing, and then the second AMS they kind of know which 2 or 3 AMSs that I need to pay a little more close attention to. But some are just like I said, we have some clients that have procedure that they have to review their AMS every 5 years. It's a procedure for them, right? So but it's a so you see a lot of people. So but the hottest thing that they want to see is just like anybody else want to see. It's the AI, right? What kind of how can your AMS help us do things a little better or a little more efficient, right? What AI part does your AMS have that help me with my staff or doing day-to-day job? For example, some of the AMS have good AI part when they want to compose an email to a member that's lapsed or a member that's expiring. They could just start typing something, and AI will fill in all the information of the member based on the data set that's in the AMS. So that's kind of cool. I mean, so when you're sending an email, you don't have to waste 15, 20 minutes writing an email. You can just say, I'm going to write this, and AI will generate a summary, kind of like a draft, and basically with all the information of that member, and all you have to do is just proofread it and send it, right? So those kind of things are cool, and that's what people are looking for mostly at AMS Fest as well.
Yeah.
Other than AMS selection, right? But
right. Right. Well, that's great to hear. And let's bring this whole conversation really back to impact. I'd love to know one story or example you've seen that shows how even a simple dashboard or a visual can really transform how an association thinks about their programs or their members.
So the good example that I always think it's very, very beneficial is we work with one clients that are in the accreditation certification area, and their members have to be certified in order for them to work in that area. And then the association is the one that offers all the exams. So they're tracking who's taking what exams and who passed, who fails, and how many times they've taken and what the score and all that stuff, right? But they also have another department sells all the books and e-learning and things like that to help the members, which is good, to help the members with their exams. So we we help them visualize. We help them analyze their data, so to see who how many of your members have taken this class and haven't passed, right? And based on that list, we also look at members that have passed those exams, and what did they do previously? Did they buy a certain book? Did they take a certain class, online class, or what were they doing to help them pass the class? And based on the information, they pass the information to the members who didn't pass, and say, hey, look, 80% of my members that passed this exam have done A, B, and C. So as a member, I'm grateful because you are trying to help me pass this exam, but it's also beneficial. It's also beneficial for the associations, because they are the one that's offering the online class, the books, and all that stuff. So they are getting the revenue based on that. But it's as a member also the members appreciate that the association's looking after them, right? So it's an impact on both sides, which is really, really great. That I think it's members feel good, but it's also association feel good, just because hey, I'm not just, yes, I am helping members, but we're also getting an additional benefit based on that.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. I love hearing those real world examples and seeing how things work. This has been such a great conversation, and I know our listeners will take a lot from it. Before we let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our episodes a little just for fun, lightning round portion here, Denny. So first one is easy. Have you gotten to get away to anywhere fun lately?
Yes. Last week we were in Canadian SAE in Victoria, and what's funny is I know this is this is a quick question, but I'm gonna extend it a little bit. So we were in Victoria, was in British Columbia on the West Coast, and my family was able to join us, but we were planning to go from Victoria to Vancouver. When we were going to go to Vancouver, all the ferries were canceled, so we decided to take a seaplane going to Vancouver, and we went to Vancouver. Of course, we rented a car, drive around, and then stay in Vancouver for a night, and came back to Victoria through ferry. Right. And then from the ferry station, we took an Uber back to the hotel. So technically, yes, it is Victoria is gorgeous. But the point what I was going to say is we took all the different means of transportation basically out there. We took the ferry, we took the seaplane, we took a Uber, and we rented a car. Right. So
that's great. What a trip. I love it. Okay,
yes.
So I know you're not a big podcast listener, but is there a TV show you'd recommend for our guests?
I am a big fan of Amazing Grace. So Amazing Grace, I love that show. It's just because there's a strategy involved in it, and just like any game show, there's also a strategy, but it's also a luck. Luck plays a lot of things. You can strategize all you want, and it's what I like about it. It's equivalent to real life. You can strategize all you want, but luck somehow plays a little bit into that as well, right? So that's one of my favorite TV show.
That is great, and a good analogy for life for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
What's one place in the U.S. you've never been to but are dying to go?
I believe you or not, I travel a lot for work, but I haven't been to Yellowstone.
Oh, that's on my bucket list.
Yeah, that's one of my bucket lists. And also, I've been to Alaska. I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you two. I've been to Alaska before, but I haven't been to Alaska when it was 28 hours of daylight, right? So I want to see what it is like bright, for most of the day. People hate it, but it's on my bucket list.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, last one. Finish this sentence. When you see me looking at my phone, it probably means that I'm
looking at my watch and figuring out what I need to do next. I'm a planner, so I'm usually stick to the schedule quite strictly. So I usually see how much time I have with what I'm doing now and how much time I have for the next one. So I need to plan. So like now, like when we talk right now, I know what I'm going to eat for lunch and I know what I'm going to eat for dinner and what time I'm going to eat. So that's what is, that's, and how much time I have to eat. So usually it's crazy, but that's unfortunately that's how my life goes.
As a very type A person, I feel that I don't mind that at all. Awesome. Well, Denny, thank you again. This has been so great, and I appreciate you joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us, Colleen. Really appreciate it, and this is awesome.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights Podcast, previously known as the Association 100 Podcast, is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words and wisdom from the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwardupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association insights and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in.